In this video, we're going to be talking about the herding dog group. The herding dog group might include breeds like the Border Collie, the Corgi, the Belgian Malinois, the Australian Shepherd, the German Shepherd, the Shetland Sheepdog, the Standard Collie, the Australian Cattle Dog, the Catahoula Leopard Dog, and more. Herding dogs are known to be adventurous, attentive, responsible, bossy, and sometimes clingy, and we're going to talk about why. But first, let's start by talking about the history of the herding dog group. So, herding dogs were bred to move and control livestock. Guarding dogs were developed prior to herding dogs, and they were developed mostly to protect the livestock, but they were not supposed to chase them or move them or scare them in any way. So the farmers realized that they needed some different kinds of dogs in order to move the livestock and get them going in the right direction. So for that reason, the herding dogs were bred. So they're bred for the ability to control and move them, but their primary function is to gather, drive, and protect the herd. A little more history. Different breeds were bred for different jobs. So there would be some bolder breeds, much like the Australian cattle dog, that would move the larger stock, like the cattle. And then there would be some of the less assertive breeds, and they would move the more sensitive animals like sheep. And then, of course, there were some that were actually used for human hunting and gathering. So in the herding breed, there were a lot of strengths that were found. There was responsiveness to the handler, likelihood for intense barking, acute perceptiveness of any little changes in the environment, reactivity to movement, and a strong drive to work. And you know what that made? An ideal human herder. So the German Shepherds and the Belgian Malinois were used for things like border control and used to basically look for, hunt down, and gather people who were maybe on the run or trying to escape somewhere or were somewhere that they were not supposed to be. So now I want you to take a look at this picture. In this picture, we have a bunch of different sports balls, right? We've got the soccer ball, the football, the basketball, volleyball, bowling ball, tennis ball, and more. Okay, so imagine for a moment you are at a soccer game and you happen to see the soccer player trying to kick a bowling ball. Let's talk about the bowling ball analogy. So balls are designed for certain functions in certain environments, right? The soccer ball is designed for kicking on the soccer field. The basketball is designed for bouncing on the court and getting in the basket. The bowling ball is designed for knocking down pins after rolling down the bowling alley, right? But if you take one of those balls and you put it in the wrong environment and use it under the wrong context, there's probably going to be a problem. Imagine kicking a bowling ball with your foot. It would not feel good. Okay, so much like different balls having different functions, dogs also have different functions within their environment. So let's talk a little bit more about that. The herding dog group, we need to understand what their needs are. Their perfect situation, in the case of, let's say, a border collie, might be the herd sheep. So they might be on a big giant field and they have a job and they can work 18 hours a day and they can herd sheep and do what they're bred to do, right? So unfortunately, dogs in these days don't live in their ideal environments all the time. So we might be seeing dogs who take that same function of herding those sheep. And what happens if we have a car driving down the road? Typically, we have a dog who sees a contrast in the environment and is going to chase and herd that car and try to control that car the same way that they might do for the sheep, right? So that's the bowling ball. So that's the ball in the wrong environment for this border collie, okay? And it's not to say that we can't get through that and we can't adjust for that, but it's important to recognize that there is a difference between a border collie who is bred to herd sheep and control things, being in an environment that's appropriate for them versus being in an environment where they don't know what to do with themselves and they kind of can't handle the impulses in the same way. Another example might be kids running down the road or your kids running in the yard. If you have a herding dog at home, this might be more of a problem for that specific breed group compared to some others because that's their bowling ball situation, right? That is their their nemesis, their thing of like, I must control all of these children who are in chaos right now. So this is what a lot of people will run into as an issue with having a herding breed in the modern world. So the herding dog group in the modern world, here are some things that you might deal with or that you might see. So they tend to be sensitive to subtle changes in the environment. So any sort of sudden environmental contrast, meaning, somebody is sitting down in the living room and then all of a sudden they get up from the couch. Or you're taking your dog out to the car and every day you kind of follow the same routine, but today somebody's sort of popped out and is walking down the road. There's an environmental contrast there. Or your dog is looking out the window and sees, your neighbors walking in their own yard, and that's an environmental contrast for them because that is not the norm to the rest of the environment. So that is something that herding dog breeds in particular tend to be extra sensitive to. And that's because it's exactly what they were bred for. They were bred to pick out that single sheep that's out of order, right? Or that single cattle that's not doing what they're supposed to do. So they're doing exactly what they were bred for. They also are designed for like 18-hour work days. Okay. And in the modern world, we are not working 18-hour days. We're not active for that long. So if you have a herding breed and you have maybe a work from home job, that's great because you're home on a regular basis. But if your work from home job includes you sitting in front of the computer and doing something for, 8 to 10 hours a day, this is going to be a problem for a herding breed because there's only so much they can give away from what their norm should be. Okay. And then the other thing is they're highly intelligent, and that will play a large role in a lot of their day-to-day stuff, whether it's thinking ahead and becoming anxious or being one trial learners where, you can only get away with things one time before they figure it out. Stuff like that. Okay. So these are very highly intelligent dogs. So here's what they could really use from us as they're humans. They really need some clear instructions. It's extremely important to be clear with these dogs. Okay. Clarity is key. They need complexity. They need novel tasks. They're so highly intelligent that they'll get bored more easily than some other breeds might. So complexity is good. Teaching them to go fetch the remote for you, or teaching them to go pick out a specific toy, things like that. Teaching them to clean up things that were dropped in the kitchen. Okay. They need to be taught how to rest. This is not something that comes naturally for them. So if you're going to go out and exercise them, that's excellent because you're meeting that need. But then you most likely are going to have to teach them how to come home and how to have some downtime and rest. Okay. And then minimal alone time. Again, these dogs were bred to be out with their people for 18 plus hours a day. So having a herding breed who you need to leave home alone, who doesn't have access to you for, 8 to 10 hours a day, is going to be a big problem for them. So they are meant to be with their people. They very much have a team mentality about them. So arranging your environment or arranging their environment so that if it's not with you, they can at least be spending time with somebody that they value. Okay. And then with the herding dog group, you want to watch out for, like I already mentioned, the environmental contrast. That's going to be really important with this specific group. And then predictability. Use those patterns to your advantage so they know exactly what to expect and when to expect it. In summary, with the herding dog group, some things you might deal with, which are normal and can be expected, but also can be worked with. They may be prone to chasing fast-moving objects, again, like cars, like kids, bikes, things like that. They are prone to controlling behavior towards other pets and family members. They are the manager. They are the ones in charge, or they think so. So they are going to be more controlling, and they're going to try to be more efficient about what they're doing. They have sensory hypersensitivity. So that means they're just more sensitive to new sights, new sounds, new smells, because again, they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to pick up on the subtle changes in the environment. They can tend to be neurotic, repetitive, and have OCD-like behaviors. Sometimes this comes from lack of exercise. Sometimes it comes from lack of, mental engagement, but sometimes it truly can be genetic and just in those genes where they tend to be more obsessive and more fixated on things. They can tend to have excessive barking. And again, that is something that was valued back when they were bred originally. We wanted dogs who could bark and intimidate some animals. They may be prone to nipping at the feet or legs. Okay, whether that's you walking around the yard or whether that's kids, running or wherever it is, coming down the stairs. That's one that I tend to see a lot. A lot of corgis, especially those really low-level dogs who are right at your feet and your ankles. They tend to be likely to be nipping at the feet. They are protective of their territory. Okay, they are, again, meant to be protective of what they're supposed to be trying to control. So that can tend to be played out in the home life. And hyperactive and restlessness. Okay, and then space issues. A lot of these dogs, they really like to, again, keep control. So therefore, they have issues with other dogs getting into their space or other people getting into their space. So, you want to be very careful about kids and visitors and such who haven't earned their trust yet to not be getting into their face or getting into their space too much. And then just some ideas for enrichment activities for these particular breeds. So chasing is a really popular one that they like. Toy play, games with their humans, agility, puzzle games and problem solving, rally, hiking, herding balls, animal herding like sheep herding, and tribal. Okay, so those are just a few things that you could think about doing with your herding dog. Again, the main things, predictability is key with them. Watch for those environmental contrasts anytime that you can control the environment in a way that is not going to create that contrast. That's going to be helpful. Engaging them, spending time with them, and getting them outside. Okay, outdoor play and outdoor time is really important to them. Okay, so enjoy your herding breed. And I hope that this was helpful to shed a little light on their history and the common things that they might be going through and dealing with.